So
That's good.
I am talking to Graham, interviewing Graham about his entire life today. Simply because I adore Graham and I think he's got an amazing story that's worth telling. I have had the pleasure to know Graham since 2020 when we started doing the IVD Superheroes Saturday chats in lockdown. And very, very sadly, we now know that Graham's got a terminal cancer. And I really want a video so that I can always see and hear him. Don't happen. That is the truth of the matter. I think you've got an amazing
It is.
story, and I want to be able to continually, for as long as I want to be able to access you. So I want to start from the beginning because your life's been hard, and it literally started when you were born.
It was. But first of all, thank you for that lovely intro. It's been a pleasure to get to know you and actually meet you last year when you came up and surprised us. And yeah, that touched my heart, what you've done last year for us. So thank you for that first. But yes, my life,
Your
what
life.
is what a start I had in life, not only for me, but my parents. So I came into this world on the 30th of January, 1972, full-term baby. My mum was absolutely massive. And at first I thought she was having twins. And our waters broke at 7 o'clock in the morning. And by 7:45, I popped out and she had a little baby boy.
Oh, you weren't taking your time then. You were eager to come
But
out.
it was slightly different. Expecting a very big baby, I was only a pound in weight. I was absolutely tiny and a lot of shocked people around me mum took the baby straight off her
I'm
and
shocked now.
she didn't
Wow.
even get to see me. They rushed us straight away. My dad didn't even get to see us be born. And they took him to one side and they just said, your baby's very different and we need to get him to the hospital urgently. And you can have a quick look, but we don't advise you to have a look. But my dad says, yeah, I need to see my son. So you got about 2 minutes with us. And then I was police escorted to hospital, which was about 10 miles away. And they noticed I was born with no opening at the bottom. And within 2 hours, I had surgery. And they obviously created a stoma straight away, without a doubt. And I think my dad got to see us that evening. And they got told that I probably would not survive the night because I was such a tiny baby. And they just didn't know which way it was going to go. And my mum didn't actually get to see us for nearly 2 weeks.
God, that's
She
crazy.
was stuck in hospital. They were busy looking after her.
It's crazy to even think about how you can, you were 1 pound, you were so small. How intricate must that surgery have been to even, your intestine must have been teeny weeny.
Tiny, absolute tiny.
So, even back
And
when the dinosaurs were alive. So when you were born, they actually had the knowledge to do that, which I think is actually really cool. And we're very
yeah,
thankful for.
yeah. So the first surgery I had was stoma surgery. And I think I was in hospital for 2 or 3 months. And
How
then
come your mum didn't get to see you for 2 weeks?
I think she had complications. I don't know the full story on that, but she had complications down there. And they kept her in hospital for 2 weeks. And I know my mum kept saying that when she was on the maternity ward, she kept getting upset because other mothers were having their babies next to them and
Yeah,
she didn't have hers.
that's awful.
And obviously, the communication them days between hospitals 10 miles away is not as good as it is today.
No.
Um, but my dad was up at the hospital every day, spending hours with us and
They
going
must have
back
had to
home
split his
eventually.
time then, because he'd have to come and see you and then go and see your mum. I bet your poor dad was exhausted.
Yeah. Plus, I had an older brother, 3-year-old brother as well. And he was sort of kept getting pushed onto family from pillar to post,
Yeah.
getting him looked after. So it was a juggling act. And I eventually got home after 3 months, 4 months. But in those days, they had no stoma bags for babies my size, not at all.
So what did you have on?
And all they could use was bandages,
Oh
and
God.
they had to wrap bandages round and round and round, and they were changed every hour just to make sure everything was all right.
That
And that
takes
was
a
day and
while.
night. And
Jesus.
with us being so small, I had to be fed every hour to try and gain the weight.
Yeah.
But I wasn't taking my feeds very well.
Mm.
Um, 9 times out of 10, when I would have a feed, I'll be bringing it all back up.
Oh God.
And it took them weeks to work out why that food was not staying down, and found out that I had a hiatus hernia as well. So, and my dad was always telling us, he says, used to sit us in the palm of his hand and just feed us. He says, I was that small. He
And I bet
says it
there's
would
no
take,
photo evidence of this either, is there? Because it was,
there's
when the
no,
dinosaurs
that
existed, we didn't have cameras.
exactly. And just
Oh,
fast forwarding it a little bit, I actually got access to my hospital notes from when I was born, because I was curious
yeah,
as to
I've just
see
accessed mine and it's been a little bit
why
triggering to say.
why was I born like that? Why did they have to do what they did to us? And I, I have to admit, I was shocked what I read in the notes from the consultant when I was transferred to the hospital. He actually wrote in his notes was, I've been presented with this freak looking baby that I have to try and repair. And when you're reading that, it was like, really?
I mean,
And
the fact is, when they wrote those notes, they didn't expect anybody to ever be able to access them, did they? Other than
that's it.
other medical professionals. Not that that makes it okay, because it doesn't. That's actually disgusting. But again,
Mhm.
it was a different time where people were much less offended. That's just a horrible
Exactly.
thing to read. And
Mhm.
it makes me so sad. That's horrible.
I must admit, I did get upset over it, and I didn't know whether to show my parents, and but I thought they had a right to know,
Yeah.
and I did show them eventually, and they did get upset, but we got over it. You know, we kept saying it was the times back then. Like
Yeah.
you said, they just
Yeah.
didn't expect in the future we would get access to
No,
such things.
that's horrible though. But I'm
So
glad you
yeah,
shared it
so
with them. And
sorry.
I'm glad you shared it with them. I'm sure that actually helped you all move past it because you were all in it together.
That's right. That's right. So the
Don't
first
get
two
any
years of my
thoughts.
life
That was a weird thing to have happened. There you go.
was in and out of hospital, slowly gaining weight.
Did
And
they do anything about the hernia?
no, they said they would, hopefully I would grow out of it later on in life. But then they started to notice something else. My parents pointed out that I wasn't sitting up properly as a baby, and I was sort of hunched over. And again, the consultants dismissed it, saying there's nothing wrong, there's nothing wrong. But my parents kept insisting. So something's just not right with him, the way he sits. And one of the consultants turned around and said, "Oh, he's just protecting his stoma. That's what he's doing." And my parents are sitting there thinking, "Well, how does he know that he's got this? How does he know he's got it? He's protecting it from getting hurt. He
It doesn't
doesn't
sound
know."
very realistic as old as you were to be aware, does it?
Yeah. So my parents pushed on and asked questions. And finally, we got a diagnosis that I had scoliosis of the spine. And my spine was sort of bent forward. And that was the reasons why I wasn't sitting properly in the baby chair.
I was going to say, what's the cause of that? But I assume you were born with that as well. So
Yeah.
really a cause of it,
Once
you were born with it.
once I saw the right consultant, he confirmed that I've probably had it since birth, most likely.
Yeah.
But obviously at the time, everything else was on other things before they actually realised what was happening
Yeah.
with my spine. So for 2 years, I had that colostomy, and then it was decided that they were trying to make an opening to see what would happen and put the stoma back, which they did when I was 2 years old.
I can't imagine how that surgery even goes, because you imagine that, I imagine, although I do not know, of course, when you think about there being no anus, you kind of think, well, I kind of think of there being no route even down to it. So did you actually like have the rectum in place and everything? It was just that there wasn't the opening.
There was just no opening.
Right.
So they obviously opened it up, hoping everything would go well. But sadly, it was all the muscles that had been damaged, and I had no feeling whatsoever. And as I started to get older, I started to ask questions of, why am I still incontinent? Why am I in nappies when my friends are all normal, so to speak? Don't like using that word, but
No,
again,
I understand.
the way the world is at the
I
minute.
always come out with like a normal, healthy person because I don't.
Yeah,
And you have to do the air quotes because, yeah, normal. I don't think we have a definition, but I do get what you're saying.
yeah.
Everybody else was the same and you were
Was
not.
reversed, and then they noticed I couldn't walk. I was not walking, and my parents again asked the questions of, why is he not walking? And again, consultants were just brushing it off. It's just slow development, and it'll come natural, and nothing was happening. Stood us up, I would fall down straight away, and my parents again kept pushing for answers, and they got told that it was probably to do with my scoliosis, and that I would probably never walk, never ever walk. I'd be in a wheelchair for all of my life, and the best thing for us to do for school is to go to a special school where they can deal with all this. So when I was aged 4, I was sent off to a special school, and a lot of the pupils had walking issues, they had cerebral palsy,
Yeah.
but I didn't have an actual diagnosis of the walking issue,
It was
and
just an
the
assumption that it was the scoliosis. When they
scoliosis.
decided that you'd got scoliosis, not decided, when they recognized that you'd got scoliosis, did they say that there was anything they could do about that, or was that just you've got scoliosis and you shall live with that forever?
Um, I was told I would have it forever, but there would be surgery in the future. They couldn't do it at such a young age, because if they did, it would stunt my growth and I wouldn't grow. And some of my parents just had to accept that. I had to accept that. And let's say started school when I was 4, and at first those weren't happy that I was incontinent. They didn't want anything to do with it. And they kept saying, well, you should be out of nappies by now. And that was a tough period. And I kept asking questions. Why can't I go to the toilet like my friends? And they had a big conference meeting, and they decided when I was 7 that the stoma would be put back. And I actually remember going into hospital for that when I was 7. I remember the ward that I was on and the surgeon.
That's crazy.
And I remember I was absolutely petrified, because I had heard all these talks going around us, but nobody actually explained what they were going to do
Yeah,
and what I would be coming out with.
yeah.
All I heard was bags this, bags that, and
And I
will you
assume you
be able
couldn't
to?
actually remember having the bag the first time at that point.
Yeah, yeah.
Crazy.
And I just didn't know what to expect. I don't think my school didn't know what to expect. So yeah, I had that surgery done I think it was in the March of 1979, and I was back at school within a month.
I can't
And
believe you
then
remember
that's
that date.
and that's when I started to feel different from everybody else. The they appointed someone to be my sole carer, and those would do all the stoma care and everything that I would need. But they still had to train us to pass water at this stage because they just kept us in
Were you,
nappies.
when you were 7 years old, were you still being wrapped in bandages or could you then use an actual bag?
I had actual bags then. That's They were really big bags at the time. I think they put us on adult bags, and they like nearly covered the whole of the
Yeah,
torso.
that little body. Sorry,
'Cause
anyway, back to your bladder. They were being
so
taught.
yeah, they forgot that I hadn't been trained with the bladder. So that took nearly a year for us to be trained with that, and that gave us some independence. But then going back to the stoma care, um, I was told at school that okay, you've got this bag and you're different to anyone else in the school, but you've got to keep it a secret. You cannot tell anybody what you've got, and we'll deal with it all. And that's
Weird.
those words affected my life up until 5, 6 years ago.
Because you've been told since being a child that it had to be a secret.
Yeah, and that was tough. And every time they came to manage the stoma at the school, I was taken away and taken to a part of the school where no other pupils were allowed to go. And then I was put back into class. I was taken out of class in the middle of class to be
Did they
sorted.
decide when
And
you
then,
were going to go to the toilet then? Did they have a schedule in which to take you away and empty your bag, or did you have to somehow let
yeah,
them know? So they had a
no,
schedule.
they had a schedule. Um,
Crazy.
and
So you could
it
have
was
actually been sat
scheduled.
there with a full bag for ages waiting for your time. That's
There
weird.
had been occasions where that happened, but the teachers were aware, and I would put my hand up and I would say, my stomach's not right. And straight away they would sort of whisk us out of the class and
Had
take
little
us to where
codes.
the
Little
carer was. So
crazy.
yeah, and that went on. I was in the same school from the age of 4 until 17.
Wow.
And
Must have been
again,
hard
in
though.
them early days, the school even kept saying that we don't think you'll ever walk. It's not worth doing physio. We'll just keep you in a wheelchair. That's what we'll do.
That's not a
And my
very
parents
progressive way of thinking now, is it?
and my parents weren't having that. And
It sounds like they fought for you, like from the moment you were born. They fought hard for you.
they did. And I had friends at home that could run about, but I would still go out to play. And even to this day, my mum laughs. She says, I would send you out in the street with your friends and you used to shuffle along on your bottom, and all your friends used to stay with you. They never ran off for anything.
That's
And
adorable.
then they would help us to get home
See,
at
because
the
we
end of the
often think these days about kids being unkind. So it's really nice to hear a scenario in which they weren't unkind. They were good. They were good friends to
yeah.
you.
And I really did have a lovely group of friends when I was that young. They never left as well. Once I was out to play, they stayed with us the whole time, where they could have easily ran off
I
and
love
done
that.
adventures like kids do at that age. And my mum and dad decided, let's start our own physio at home, but just not say anything to anybody. So that's
Amazing.
what we're doing. We started physio, and I started to walk around the house with it was a camping chair, and I used to hold the two handles, and I used to just slowly go forward. And we'd done this for nearly a year, and then I finally managed to stand on my own. And then I finally, within weeks, I could take my own steps on my own. And
Oh, bless mum and dad. I love them.
and I remember talking to my mum and dad, and I says, "How are we going to present this to my team, to the school, to my consultants at the hospital? What do we do?" And she says, "Tell you what, I'll ring the school up and I'll say, we're bringing it in because we need to discuss something." So I says, "Okay, we'll do that." Yeah. So we got to the school, and my mum went in and she asked for the team to come and meet us at the car. to help us out. So everyone came and they started to walk towards the car, and I said, "Well, hang on, I need to do something first." So although it was difficult, I finally got myself out of the car, and then I started to walk, and the looks on their faces was like, "Wow, are we really seeing
Yeah.
this?"
Ugh. I
And
feel like
it
crying,
wasn't
Graham, and you're
perfect.
only still a child at this point in this story.
Yeah, it wasn't perfect walking. I was walking on my heels and on my toes,
But you were
and I was
walking.
walking at an angle, and everybody was absolutely speechless. And it was then I started to get the proper physio that I actually needed.
Yeah, because you'd
But
shown them that you could actually do that, that your body
yeah,
would take it and your mind would take it. That's amazing.
and but on top of that, because my walking was so different and so it was painful. I had to have surgery on my legs. I had to have tendons cut, and that was done on my heels and the back of me knees and in my groin, and I was in plasters for weeks on end.
That sounds horrendous,
But
Graham.
but I knew in the long term that I want to walk even
Yeah,
easier in
yeah.
the future. And I was happy. Well, I wasn't happy to have surgery, but I was at an age where I could understand that I was thinking of the
Yeah.
future.
So I know from obviously from talking to you that you've had problems with your feet and surgery on your feet. Did that happen when you were younger, or did that come later?
The belief I had all these tight tendons and muscles from when I was born, and the fact that I never walked until I was nearly 7. It was like
The tendon
everything
thing
was
is still making me cringe
seized,
right now. I can feel
seized
it
up.
in my legs.
Yeah, and I remember having these two plaster casts on both legs, and there was a bar across the middle, so you couldn't close the legs at all. It was it was strange. It was strange. But again, I knew it was for the best for the future.
Yeah, yeah,
And like I say, I eventually got the right physio, and as time went on, my walking got easier and more comfortable. But it wasn't perfect because of the scoliosis.
yeah.
You know, I was still, as my dad put it, and we always laughed about it. I walked like a penguin, but we laughed about it. You know, we joked about everything about myself, which
I think
helped.
that helps. Yeah, I personally find
Yeah,
that's something that helps
it
me
did.
anyway. Even at school,
Yeah.
like down to talking about the area that I lived in, which was known as like a scruffy area and stuff like that. So there was a point when people started taking the mickey about where I lived. And then there was a point where I started making jokes about where I lived. And then everybody stopped taking the mickey. I think it was less fun because I was kind of doing it myself. That was a really weird scenario. And literally since then, since like secondary school, I realized how much just being able to joke about stuff sometimes helps.
Mhm.
And you learned that at a really young age.
Yeah. I felt as if I had to grow up before my time.
Yeah, definitely. I
I
mean, I
really
feel
did.
like that from being like diagnosed with IBD at 19, but that's 19. You would literally had your life on pause a lot because I feel like
Yeah.
IBD paused my life from being 19, and then there's all these surgeries and complications and blah blah. And I just, I was watching everybody that I went to school with doing things, progressing, doing the driving lessons and buying cars and buying houses and having families, and I was just like, can't get anywhere. I can't even switch jobs right now because it's continually knowing that you can't go for an interview and say, hi, yeah, I'm going to need to have some time off every month because I need an infusion. I might need surgery soon, so I might need 6 to 8 weeks after that, or 12, who knows? And I constantly felt like I was stuck.
Mm.
So, and you've kind of been in that position since you were little, but not really because you didn't know any different. It kind of feels like you didn't really know that you even were stuck because in your head you were just doing the only thing that you knew how, which was to be strong and resilient and to keep going.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Mhm. So let's say I was in and out of hospital 2 or 3 years from the age of 7 to 10, having all these surgeries on my legs and on my feet to make it easier for me. But then they noticed that the scoliosis was getting worse when I was 10. Not only was the spine bending forward, but it was starting to twist as if you were turning a bottle top. And that started to cause problems with the position of the stoma where it
Was
was.
that painful? It sounds
It
like it
was,
should be.
it was, especially when I walked. I thought I'd gotten over the pain of walking once I had the feet surgery and the leg surgery, and it did for a short while. And then I noticed my back pain. Something wasn't right. And the x-rays showed it was getting worse. And I had, where the stoma was positioned on the left side, I was starting to get a dip in that area because my rib cage was literally touching my hip at the time. And that was painful. And they had to make the hardest decision whether to do surgery or not at the age of 10. And the fact that if they did do surgery, that it would probably stunt my growth. I wouldn't grow much more than what I was at that time. But before surgery, they wanted to put this brace on it was to stop things getting worse. So they had to customize this leather and metal brace that went round the torso. It had a metal bar going through up in the front, then had like a chin rest. Then at the back there was two metal bars and a headrest. And round the torso, it was like thick leather, really thick leather. But they had to make a hole for the stoma to appear through. And that had never been done before. And they didn't know whether it was going to work. But thankfully it did.
You really made them
But,
work at it.
but it caused a lot of issues with the stoma. It kept catching on the side where the hole was. The bags would come off. The bags would leak all the time. And I was supposed to wear this brace 24/7, 12 months before they could do surgery. Really hated it from day one. Found it very distressing, very uncomfortable, and all the issues I had with bag leaks with it,
I
bags
imagine it
coming off.
rubbed in different areas as well with all of the straps and stuff.
Yeah,
It
the
was chafing
straps,
itself where.
it had to be as tight as possible. It really did. The
So was
tightest it
that
could ever get.
intentionally trying to twist your spine back to a certain point before they could do the surgery? Is that the point of it?
It was to stop it from getting any worse. It wouldn't straighten it up, it wouldn't untwist it. It was just to stop it from deteriorating.
So why did you have to wear that for 12 months before the surgery? In my head, I thought it was trying to improve something so that you could go for the surgery.
Just so the spine wouldn't get any worse. They needed the spine to be stable in one position
Mm-hmm.
before they could start opening up and trying to realign it. And but yeah, that first year it was awful. And when you've got leather rubbing onto your skin on your hips, when you've got hardly any fat on you, the pain and the blisters I used to get on both hips was just a nightmare.
Ouch.
Absolute nightmare. So then eventually says, right, we're going to have to do surgery and we're going to put some metal rods in, and then you're going to have to go back in this brace for 6 months, and hopefully that'll be it. Everything will be stable. It'll not get any worse. We're going to fuse your spine so it'll not move. But they didn't tell us that I needed pre-surgery first.